Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Femme Force Podcast. My name is Rachael and I am your host. And today I'm really excited because I'm going to be talking about a subject I'm really passionate about with my new friend, Parita. So she is a former corporate professional turned mindset coach, and she helps professionals, working parents with all the things I love to talk about: burnout, guilt, being overwhelmed, and just trying to build a life without regret. So, Parita, thank you so much for being here. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me, Rachel.
So, how would you describe your work today?
Yeah, so I would say like you said, I'm a mindset coach. I work with high performing professionals, highly ambitious people who are trying to get it right and at both work and at home, as well as working parents, on all the things you mentioned: guilt, overwhelm, that general feeling of just being stuck where you are, where it's like you kind of have a vague idea of where you want to go, but you're just not sure what that next step is.
Yeah.
I help them address those things now to avoid regret and resentment later. I always say I'm looking at my 80-year-old self and thinking about what she would want me to do now so that when I get to 80, I'm not full of regret and resentment. And that's what I try to help my clients with as well.
I mean, it's a good mindset outlet to have. Like, what do you want to look back on and be like, what do you want to eat? I always think, like, how do I want to be remembered? How do I want to be spoken about at my funeral? Like,
Yeah.
will people attend? Like, I'm hoping it's going to be a very popular event. So,
Yeah.
thinking about all those kind of things. But yeah, you get that feeling of what do you want to do next? And you were in corporate first for a long time and like really created an amazing career for yourself there. What made you want to leave that corporate lifestyle and start your own practice? Because it's a really big shift from one to the other.
Huge shift, one that I did not anticipate how huge it would actually
Yeah.
feel once I was done sort of making the initial leap.
Yeah.
But I would say that I made the majority of my decisions after I started college all the way through like my early 40s, late 30s, based on what I thought other people wanted me to do. Right. So I majored in finance because I was good at math. No, I'm not, I am good at math, but I'm good at math. That's
Yeah.
why I majored in that. And it was the right choice because my parents wanted me to have a stable job after graduating, right? They're
Yeah.
immigrants who came to this country, worked
Mhm.
really hard to give me my education. So, okay, made that choice. And then I took a job that I thought would make everybody else happy, that would pay me well. And then I decided that job. So it was these series of decisions that were about other people. And I finally came to this realization when my husband, who actually asked me a question that no one had ever asked me, which was, what do you want to do? Like,
Right?
what is
No,
it that
you're
you
like,
actually
no
want?
one asks. That's
No one asked.
amazing. So
And so
simple.
yeah, exactly. And so it's like, and that's just a small way of being there for someone. Like, what do you want? Right. And so when he asked me that, we had a big conversation about like, well, I've always wanted to be an entrepreneur. He knew that, but I want to make this a reality. And so that's when I started thinking about how I could take my corporate experience and all of the skills I had gathered over a career of almost 16 years and use it in an entrepreneurial sense. And that's when I decided to open my, get certified in coaching through IPEC and then start my business.
I mean, I love that. And I mean, it is. It's such a huge shift. And I mean, but going to corporate and being there for 16 plus years, especially in finance, which is very male dominated as it is, what really, what did you learn from like corporate America about people, about the pressure? I mean, because I feel like we're all so on edge in corporate America where like a PowerPoint deck is the end of the world. And we're not nurses, we're not doctors, like it's like a marketing email and it's not that deep. But we all act like the world's on fire 24/7 because I feel like that's just what's happening around us. And it's also like what we're taught from the older generations and
Yes.
the leaders above us.
Absolutely. I always said, I'm like, we're not brain surgeons. We're not
Yeah.
saving anybody's
Not
lives,
saving
people, right?
anybody's life.
And so I think there's this assumption that pressure makes people perform better. And I learned through my experience in corporate that pressure does not make people perform better, right? When pressure goes up, things get done for sure. But how do they get done, right? Other
Yeah.
things get sacrificed: health, relationships, collaboration, trust, respect. All these things get pushed to the back burner because we're feeling pressure to meet a deadline or to get something back to someone, or we create our own deadlines. We never ask, hey, when do you actually need this? Because I have XYZ going on. When can I get this to you? When do you need it by? We just assume it's now, and then we just move forward and push everybody else in that same way, right? And what I've learned now through my coaching, and I coach a lot of corporate professionals, is that people need space. A little bit of space. I'm not saying, days and months and things like that, but they need space to actually think, to plan, to integrate, to rest, to bring different ideas together, right? And I just didn't see a space for that in my corporate experience. It was almost like everything is a fire drill, even though it really wasn't, It's just, it's intense. And I personally think if anybody is listening that's an executive in corporate America, I think corporate could use a little bit more flow, a little bit more
Yeah.
space. Because like you said, a marketing email is not going into surgery to save somebody's life. Like if we just give things a little more time, you're going to get better results. You're going to have better relationships. You're going to have better collaboration, etc.
No, 1,000%. And I mean,
Hmm.
so many of us are on there and there's just so much, like you said, it's not just about the work life, it's also your personal life and trying to
Yeah.
balance it and figure it out. So your mind's just, you got a lot going on, especially for women. So much going on,
Yes.
so much in our
Yes.
minds. And I feel like, especially for parents, that has to be because you're worrying about your kids and their grades and what they're doing and friends and their life. So you're getting that to that point of burnout. What is the biggest sign of burnout that people are ignoring?
So
I'm
there's a
probably doing
few,
it
right?
every day here.
Yeah, there's a few, and they're usually a little like quiet and subtle, and they kind of build up over time. So, right, the general like increase in irritability, just where like little things that never got to you before. And I'm gonna put a little bit of a blanket over this. A lot of this, as I'm personally experiencing right now, can
Yeah.
also be perimenopause, menopause, like those sorts of things. So that coupled with burnout in general from work, from just life in general, it can just feel like a lot, right? So these are just a few signs to look out for, I think. So general like increase in irritability, like I said, feeling a little bit of like disconnection at home, at work, not engaging the way that you used to, maybe. When simple decisions feel heavy and loaded. So, it's like, where do we go out to dinner? And you're like, oh my God, that just feels like the biggest decision. You know what I mean? Like little things that shouldn't feel as heavy, they start to feel heavy. Always feeling like you're on, even when everything is turned off, right? So even though the laptop's closed, you've addressed everything, the
Yeah.
kids' stuff's taken care of, like you still just feel like this onness that you can't turn off. The sleep, I mean, everybody talks about this right now, like lack of quality sleep. And again, there could be a lot of things you can attribute that to, but I think burnout is one of those things. And then this is a big one. So I would say this is probably the biggest one if you were to ask me, is like a loss in meaning in things that used to bring you a lot of joy. So maybe that's a
Okay.
hobby. That could be, something like, okay, I used to love, like, reading before bed, and now even that, like, it's just like, or
Another
I pay atten
task or yeah.
another task, another thing for me to do, another thing for me to schedule. Whereas before you would do it and it was just, it was there and it brought you joy, purpose, fulfillment, whatever it was. So I think that's a big one.
I mean, the sleep thing, I definitely think none of us are sleeping well. Nobody is sleeping well at this point.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I have an Aura ring. Anybody, this is not sponsored, or if you'd like to sponsor, I would love that. But I was looking, and now they have a sleep bank where they're like, this is how much
Oh,
you need to like catch up on. And I'm like, I will never be able to catch up on all this sleep. Like, where do you think I'm going to get an
mm,
extra? Where am I getting an
yeah,
extra 8 hours to like an hour here, an hour? That's never going to happen. I'm like, so the
yeah,
bank just keeps getting bigger, and I'm like, can we remove this feature
yeah,
because I'm having anxiety over the sleep that I'm now not
yes.
getting, apparently, that I'm supposed to be like, you're telling me I'm in debt here, and it's hard. Like, your
And we also
mind's
live
just
in
going.
information overload, right? Like you said, your
Yes.
Aura rings. I have a watch. We have all these different things that are giving us data about ourselves, and you know, maybe in some ways it's helpful, but that can also cause burnout. Where you're like,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, like I can never catch up. I'm never going to get, be this way or that way. I'm never going to get all the rings closed in my watch. Like it's that feeling of just like not feeling complete too that can affect you and cause burnout.
And I feel like the more successful you get, though, and, like, you're accomplishing the tasks, none of us are taking the time to be like, "Wow, I just did that. Let's, like, have a
Hmm.
moment and do that and, like, love it and be a part of it and honor it the way that we should," and then you're just moving on to the next thing so
Yeah,
fast. So you're never giving yourself, like, an empty plate. It's just like, you're doing all this.
absolutely.
Like, where do you get that balance from? Do you think it's hard when people are trying to just be people pleasers and do all the things? Do you think there's a balance anybody could ever have? And what does that
So
balance look like, I guess?
yeah, so I mean, when we talk about people pleasing, I think, gosh, I think for so many of us, it's been modeled. Like, if you look at any sort of overall trait that we're hearing that people, mom guilt or just, guilt in general, people pleasing, all these things, I think were either modeled for us or instilled in us at a very early age. So we didn't have a choice in that, right? So we learned that like in order to keep the peace or to be seen a certain way or to feel loved, we had to make sure we behaved in a way that pleased other people, right? And if you've been doing this for over 40 years, that's going to be a hard habit loop to break, and it can, and in the moment, people pleasing, having mom guilt, feeling overwhelmed, like all these things can actually make you feel like a good person. You're like, wow, I'm so caring, I'm a good person. That's why I feel this way. And in the moment, that's true. But what is that doing to you? What's the cost of this? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? These thoughts and these feelings. And again, boundaries is a big piece of the work I do. And those can feel very uncomfortable and they can often feel, for lack of a better word, cruel, especially if you're not used to having boundaries and enforcing them and maintaining them and saying no to things or no to people that you love, right? Um, and by the time we're an adult, we've built a whole like identity around being a people pleaser, but we don't call it that. We don't walk around being like, "Oh, a people pleaser." We say, "I'm
Yeah.
low key, I'm chill," right? Which
I've
means
never been
I'm
low
a
key
people.
once in my
Yes,
life.
yeah, same, same.
Wish.
But yeah, but it's that's why it just feels so hard. Take anything, take people pleasing, take guilt, take it's 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 almost part of our wiring in a way, but you can reprogram yourself, but it takes a lot of work. It can feel very hard.
Do you think it's partially also rewiring yourself? Like, do you need to switch jobs? Like, do you need to be in a completely different mindset, or can you do it when you're still getting all that input?
You know, I think you can do it even when you're in any environment. I think sometimes, and I talk to my coaching clients about this a lot, is that we often try to move boulders that are not ours to move. And what I mean by that is I often talk to my coaching clients about like this three space analogy, right? There's this small space that's you, which is what you can control, which is what you think, how you feel, and what you actually do with those things, right? And then there's this slightly bigger space around that small space that's where you influence. So by controlling yourself, you can influence other people. No guarantee there, but you can. There's potential.
Mhm.
Then there's this vast space where all those, unmovable boulders exist, where that's other people's stuff, right? Those are things you cannot control. And the vast majority of my coaching clients, when they come to me, are operating in that
Yeah.
space, right? So sometimes, even like at work, for example, let's say you're working on a project and you can only control your piece of it. If you're over here
Yeah.
worrying or even just thinking about what Joe Schmo or whoever is doing over there with his piece, yes, it could be important, but get to that by worrying about it in advance and thinking about it and trying to control Joe. You're not going to get anywhere. You're only going to get frustrated. It's going to take away from the quality of your work. It's going to take away from your leadership presence. It's going to detract versus attract. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I think that's where people can really start. I'm not saying that is the cure all answer, but that's a good place to start. Is just doing an inventory of in different areas of my life. Where am I focused? Am I constantly just trying to, influence people and get them to do what I want to do? Am I constantly just trying to control other people or situations outside of my control? Or am I really focused on myself and the things I can control? And then it's the next step would be to, if you're not doing that, if you're not just controlling yourself, it would be to step into that space and start working on that.
Always a journey, guys. There's a lot of steps.
1000%.
And I mean, you work with obviously a lot of women, because the balance, the pressure is usually statistically more on women and all of
Yeah.
that. But you also have been working with men. And what
Mhm.
surprised you when you started working with men? Because I mean, you're a woman, so you understand the pressures yourself and the things that are going on internally and all of that from a woman's perspective. But from a
Yeah.
man's perspective,
Yeah. So I think the biggest thing that surprised me is that this generation of men want something different out of their workplace experience. I think the assumptions have always been that men are willing to sacrifice everything to get the promotion, to get the big project, to get whatever it is that they want that they deem, to help them be successful. But what I'm seeing is that men want more time at home with their kids, with their partner, with their hobbies. They want to go on vacation and actually feel like they are on vacation. They don't want to bring their laptop and, have everybody else go to the pool while they're in the hotel room working away for a few hours, only to spend, maybe an hour or two with their families in the evenings. They don't want that. And I think that's often the assumption that we make or that even leaders make, like, oh, this man is going to sacrifice everything for this job. And the woman may not be able to, they call it and I'm
Yeah.
sure you've heard of it, but the motherhood tax, where it's like
Yeah.
whether or not you become a mom or not, the minute you step into the workplace, you are pegged to somebody who may become a mom, which could, have a tax on the organization. So you are kind of put in that bucket, whereas, men can become dads, but they don't become moms, right? And so this whole societal construct, but I think for me, the biggest realization was like, no, yes, there are differences between the way men and women operate and the things that they need, absolutely, especially as they enter parenthood. But men also want some of the same things women want.
No, 1,000%. And I mean, I love that it's a new generation, so it's just like we're breaking those generational traumas where, like, men want to be like that. I
Yeah.
feel like the women are more gung ho at this point to be like, "No, I wanna do this, and we're gonna balance, and I want a partner that's a partner," and, like, all
Right.
of those different kind of things.
Yeah.
Because if you're looking at it, we're trying to not just rethink balance, but, like, rethink our values and what
Yes.
actually matters in the long run. I think
Yes.
COVID did a lot with that too. Like, when
Oh,
we're all, like,
absolutely. Yes.
dropped and we were locked in, and it's like, does any of this really matter? We're not even working in the office. Doesn't any of this even matter? Like, things are still
Yes.
functioning. We're all remote. We're at home. Our kids are homeschooled. All of these things are going on. Like, this is completely
Thousand
different than
percent.
any of
Yeah.
us prepared. And then you come back and you're like, but it worked then. And we were in a pandemic.
Hmm. I think people are questioning everything right now, which I think is a good thing, because I think that kind of questioning leads us to, maybe it's not change in the next 5 years, but change for that next generation, and that adaptation will happen as long as enough of us question and try to build, whether you're in corporate America or you're in medicine or you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to build the kind of life that works for you. I think change will come.
I'm excited for that because I would love to see
Yeah.
that happen.
Same.
I mean, and so when you're doing your coaching,
Mhm.
you're doing your coaching, are you doing more one-on-ones? Are we doing like cohorts? How does this work to try to get the best of the experience?
Absolutely. So there's a couple of different ways that I work with individuals as well as groups of individuals. So obviously you can work with me one on one, and what I do, my process is always the same for my one on one clients. Is we have a free discovery call where I learn more about you, you learn a little bit more about me. We kind of determine if the chemistry fit is right. Because I truly believe that you should shop around for a coach. Right.
Yeah.
Talk to a few different people, try to understand where they're coming from, read their testimonials, maybe even ask to speak to or connect with a past coachee or client.
Yeah.
That's all doable. And I think you should do that. You should do your homework when you're about to invest a lot of money into a relationship like that. And so
1,000%.
so you can work with me one on one. And I do traditional one on one coaching. I have a few different packages. I do assessment work with clients as well. And so I do that. But then I also work with organizations where I do a mix of one on one coaching, but also group coaching and assessment work as well. And so the difference being there, the group, and being in a cohort of people from your organization that you may not have the opportunity to connect with on a regular basis, but
That's a great point. Yeah.
you're able to connect with them in the sense that you have some degree of similarity. You may not be in the same role or on the same team,
Yeah.
obviously, but you may be at the same level. You may be at the same season of life as a young mom or as a new professional or a working dad, right? And so there are those similarities. And so I work with people in that capacity as well.
Do you see a lot more corporations like being like, hey, we should offer these kind of things to help not just working moms, but just employees in general or, people that are on management tracks or whatever it may be want to participate to be like giving them a better chance? And what are corporations really, what are they looking as an outcome for that?
Yeah, I think corporate coaching, it's already there. It looks different depending on the organization. So larger organizations work with larger coaching organizations to bring coaches in like almost mass to help people work on different things. And so you can go on a website and find, I want to coach, and then this larger coaching entity can kind of hook you up with a coach there. And so it's almost like a third party coming in and kind of taking over the function, if you will. I think the way that I do coaching and that other people do coaching is actually going to become more mainstream, especially in like organizations maybe under 1,000, maybe 3,000 people, where they're building cohorts. They're trying to get people in like a pipeline to partner, to manager, to director, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that organizations are starting to see coaching as a really valuable tool because it's not a one-time seminar where somebody attends. They might be on their laptop
Yeah.
in the back, half attending, or a webinar where they may attend and they may, be multitasking or doing whatever. Coaching is a real investment because it forces people to truly be engaged. Like you can't do a one-on-one coaching or a group coaching session. I can't require it, but I ask. I'm like, one thing I ask of you is to keep your video on because everyone's taking an hour out of their time to engage in this content. So it forces people to really engage. And I have,
Yeah.
exercises and activities to really get the thinking going. And so I think people are starting to see coaching as an investment. And there's already stats out there, where it's like coaching, corporate coaching, executive coaching will give you back. I think the stat I saw recently was like 6 to 8 times what you invested.
So they're
And if
getting
you
an
multiply
ROI
that,
back for this.
yes,
Like,
absolutely. And if you multiply that times however many people you're putting through a coaching program, right? And so I've seen some, in my opinion, some really amazing and wild, in my opinion, results from some of the 3-month group coaching packages that I've done with organizations. So it's really powerful.
I mean, number one, I would feel so when like companies invest in me and like take that time, I then feel so much more loyal.
Yes.
Where I'm like, no, I'm not looking for a job. Like I'm good. Like I'm comfortable here. Or
Mhm.
I like what's happening, or I'm getting the attention I need, or whatever it might be.
Yes.
Even though I'm getting a salary and they're already paying me those like extra little benefits that you don't really realize pay off so much longer and like for retention and all of that. So it's got to be a really good ROI for them.
Absolutely. I think so.
What does a breakout or not breakout? What does like breakthrough look like for an individual who's coming into one of these and it's just like, do they have an aha moment? Are they do they come back to you and are like, my life is balanced? What does it look
Yeah.
like?
So I think when we look at like the group coaching component, I think the one that stands out to me, the breakthrough that stands out to me the most, and I hear the most often, is the "I'm not alone" breakthrough, because we
Mhm.
all logically know that we can't be the only ones going through a specific situation or specific season of life, right? But there's always this like sense of relief when people start opening up and being vulnerable, and then somebody chimes in with like, "Oh, me too," and it's just such a beautiful thing to watch and experience as a coach. To just see like a group of people being like, oh my gosh, I thought I was the only one. And that's not the case, right? And I think in more of a one-on-one capacity, the breakthrough of like there's a lot more in your control than you think there is. Right. So you are allowed to set boundaries around your work life, with other people in your life, right? Whether at
Yeah.
work or at home, you are allowed to. It's almost like I'm not giving anybody permission, but they're almost unlocking it for themselves as
Mhm.
they're talking. So a lot of times, people say, well, I can't do that. I'm like, oh, okay, like let's take a step back. Like, who's told you you can't do that? Was it a boss or, who told you you can't do X, Y, Z? And they sit there for a moment and then they get a smile on their face and like, oh, I told myself that.
Me. Yeah. Like me.
Exactly. So it's like we're giving ourselves permission to set boundaries, to do things that fulfill us, to say no, to, you know, show up in a way that's more authentically ourselves. Um, and so I think those are some of the biggest breakthroughs I see in.
I love that though. But like what an amazing thing just to be like, I'm not alone. Like I say it all the time. I'm like, I'm not insane. Like other people feel like
No,
this too.
you're
Like,
not. You're not insane. No,
and I love that though.
everybody has their stuff. I mean, that's something that I have learned just in life, but also through my coaching and just being like an observer. Is everybody has something, but we're only seeing like the front stage of their life. We're not getting
Yeah.
access to the behind the scenes, the backstage mess, that everybody has. And so I think just keeping that in mind, especially when we're going through tougher seasons of life, is just so important. And it's so hard. Trust me, it's
Yeah.
easier said than done, but it's just so important to remember that.
No, 1,000%. And I mean, everybody's going to get something different out of it. Like if it's something in their personal life, obviously, if it's something for work or a project. So, how should people in general be rethinking, or I guess be thinking in general about success differently?
Oh man. Okay. So I think a lot of times people focus on well, okay, let me take a big step back. So I
Mhm.
think when it comes to things like success, joy, fulfillment, happiness, like these bigger terms, right? They can carry very different meanings for different people. It's important to define it for yourself, right? So what I find is that a lot of people, and for a long time, myself included, lived based like thought about my own success based on what other people were sending, were the definitions other people had for me, which were mostly based on external things. right? So like, okay, can I get the job that pays XYZ? Can I get the promotion that comes, at this time? Am I getting the big projects, right? Can I have that next shiny object, whatever it is? They have a lot of people, when they think of success, they have an outer focus or locus of control, right? Whereas I would say when you're thinking about success differently, you have to incorporate an inner locus of control, right? And making sure that stays the priority. And by that, I mean, things that you can control as well as the things that are important to you have to be part of your definition of success: your health, your well-being, your relationships, your family, your friends, your time, your energy, your hobbies, all these things that make you who you are. Your job does not make you who you are. Your job could be gone tomorrow. That promotion does
Yeah.
not define you. The amount of money in your bank account that's coming in every month does not define you, right? But what makes you you, if you keep your focus on that, in my mind, that is the most important way to define success. And I'm not saying that the promotion and the money, that's not important. It's
It is.
okay
Yeah.
to
It's
want
okay to
those
love it.
things,
Yeah.
right? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, it's also important to ask yourself, what is my definition of success costing me? Right?
Mm.
And also what will serve me best. And again, it's not like for the rest of your life. In this season of life right now that I'm in, what would serve me best? And in some seasons, absolutely, like, you need to pay for groceries and gas, all that stuff. So you have to be focused on some of those external things, right? And in some seasons, you can quiet down a little bit. Like, okay, what do I need? What's going to serve me best right now? What's going to serve my family best? And so it depends, like you said very beautifully, it's different for different people.
Yeah.
Those are just two grounding questions that can really help you decide what success means to you right now.
Well, it's deep. You have to think about it. You got to look at so many angles of your life when you're really asking yourself these kind of questions.
It takes a lot of introspection. And that's why I think
Yeah.
coaching is so beautiful, because I'm sure you can relate, Rachel. Like, do you have time during let's take it to a week, in your week to be like, okay, let's sit down, Rachel, and let's take out a notebook, and you're just sort of going, you're coaching yourself. Like, you don't time like that, and we don't fill our time with those types of things. We're like, okay, what task can I, and I'm
Yeah.
completely guilty of it as well. And
No,
that's
my
why I
to-do
have a
list is
coach.
very important to me.
Absolutely. And so I think coaching, what it gives you is, it gives you, like we talked about earlier, space to think about yourself. And again, it's a relationship with another person that you've invested in or your company has invested in. And so you're going to make time for that. And the return, I mean, it's almost immediate. After the first session, you have more clarity, you have a little more like literal space in your time. You feel like you have more space around you. You can breathe a little bit easier, right? And so that overwhelm starts to, you chip away at that overwhelm. So, I mean, I think coaching is just one of those tools that can help you. Is it the only one? No, but I think a lot of people just think they can do it themselves when I
You
know
need
most
help.
people are not creating that space. Yes.
But you need help.
Yeah.
You're too busy. You need help, and you need, someone to say, this is the hour that you're going to spend this week. It's like therapy, to
Yes.
sit down and be like, this is what you're doing. Like,
Mhm.
you need a repeat on your calendar. You're doing it Tuesdays at 3 p.m. every other, whatever it might be, to be like,
Yep.
this is what we're doing, to get the long-term benefits of it all. Like, you have to make that decision though for yourself, or a company needs to make that decision, I guess, for
Yeah.
yourself also.
And to help and keep you accountable.
Yeah. Oh
Because
no,
sometimes I'll
1,000%.
set,
Yeah.
like, I'm so guilty of like creating, little like habit trackers and stuff, and I'll be good
Mhm.
about it for the first 10 days. And after that, I'm
Oh
like,
yeah. New
oh, wow,
Year's resolutions.
yes, I haven't filled this out. I'm like, but if a coach is going to ask, like, how did you do with XYZ? You're more likely to stay on top of it, or at least be honest about what worked and what didn't, versus just brushing it aside and be like, I'll start next month or whatever.
No,
And so,
1,000%.
yeah,
It's had that accountability partner. There's psychological goals and all of that. I love that.
absolutely. Yeah.
So when everyone is doing all of this and like you're trying to figure it all out, what is one thing someone can do today to feel more in control of their life?
Yeah. So based on our conversation today, I don't think my answer will surprise anyone.
Yes.
But I think when you're sitting down to plan out your week and write down all your to-dos, right? I think everyone should make sure that they themselves are on that list in some capacity, and preferably at the top. So based on my own personal experience, right? I know that if I'm prioritizing myself and taking care of myself in whatever way, exercising, planning out my meals, scheduling in time with loved ones, you know, planning for that evening reading time, whatever it is, I feel more control over my life because I'm focused on something that is in my control. So the rest of my day could go crazy berserk, but that one thing that I've set out to do for me will still be there, and that's in my control to do.
Yeah.
And versus pouring that loads of energy into things that you have zero control over, right?
Yeah,
Pouring a
but I
little
love
bit of
that.
energy into yourself on a daily, weekly basis, whatever works for you. Everybody's different. I think that is what's going to help us feel a little bit more control in our lives.
Okay. I love that. So as we wrap up, I do like to ask all my guests one final question. But if you could give one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
Oh my gosh, this one always like gives me goosebumps. I would
Yeah.
tell my 16-year-old self to love herself a little bit more. There have been so many moments in my life where I was not self compassionate. I was really hard on myself, whether that was body dysmorphia or something to do with work or motherhood or my relationships, friendships, my relationship with my husband. Just always really hard on myself, and I'll never blame somebody else for something. Always, and not that you should, but I always put the blame on
Yeah.
myself versus being gentler and saying, well, everybody makes the things I tell my kids, right? Like, everybody makes mistakes. It's okay. We just have to apologize, move forward, repair, keep going. And I never did that with myself, especially at a younger age. So now at 40 plus, I'm starting to do that. And it's said I have a much more beautiful relationship with myself now than I did at 16 to 40. But I would definitely, that's the message I would preach to that, Parita.
I love that though. I mean, it's something that I think we're all working on is just to be kinder to ourselves. Like I did that Kendall Jenner thing where I printed a picture of my just me as a child and I put it
Yeah.
on my bathroom mirror. So I'm like, every time you're
Oh,
saying these things to yourself, I'm like, you're saying it to her.
yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, would you say
Absolutely.
it to her? I'm like, you wouldn't say it to her. So don't say it to
No.
yourself.
And I always say, like, we keep two versions of ourselves with us, right? Well, obviously the version we are right now, but then it's almost like your 8-year-old self and your 80-year-old
Mhm.
self, right? And
Yes.
so I think that's also a very powerful visual, is like you have an 8-year-old self on this shoulder and your 80-year-old self on here. And now, you're being kinder kinder for her, but then also for her. And so it's a beautiful way to live, but it takes a lot of life lessons to get you there. But yeah, definitely just love myself more, be kinder to myself.
I love that. So tell everybody we're going to put it in the show notes, but like, where can they find you? Where can we find your coaching and all the tools and
Yep.
everything?
So my website is awarifycoaching.com. And you can find me on Instagram at Awarify Coaching. You can find me over at LinkedIn, where I'm, posting ideas, thoughts, stories to just help people think differently, have a different mindset. Yeah, so you can find me in all those places, and
Awesome.
I look forward to connecting with people.
Yes, everybody go ahead and give her a shout out, give her a connect. Make sure to see if you really want to do this. Talk to your company about doing this. I think this is just so important for, I mean, mostly females that are listening here, but for the men too. Like we have all got a lot of stuff going on. So if this can help in even a little bit of a way, try it out. I think it's a great idea for HR reps in there. Put this in the benefits.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Thank you
Thanks,
so much
Rachel.
for coming on. I really appreciate it. And I hope everybody got something out of this because I definitely did.
Thank you, Rachel. I really appreciate you having me on your podcast.